Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Warm greetings and peace to us all. Respected Mr. Rizky Shafril, SHE MSE, lecturer for the research methods in administration course, and fellow students. We express our deepest gratitude to God Almighty for His grace and blessings, which have enabled us to prepare and deliver this video presentation smoothly. Allow me introduce myself. My name is Angelina Jolie, and I will serve as the moderator for today's sessions. Alongside me are my group 11 members, Nur Sakinah, Maulidia, and Zahra Meisha Sahariani. On these occasions, we will present of the topic of informant selection techniques in qualitative research. Okay. I will present the first material, followed by my colleague Noor, and then lastly Zahra. First, background. Qualitative research has fundamentally different characteristics from quantitative research, particularly in its focus on data depth and richness. In qualitative research, the term used for research subject is not sample or respondent, but rather informants. According to Muleong, an informant is a person used to provide information about the situations and conditions of the research setting. Next, meanwhile, Andy explained that an informant is a person who is thought to have mastered and understood the data, information, or facts from a research object. This fundamental difference reflects the philosophical difference between the two research paradigms. Quantitative research aims to generalize to a population through a representative sample, while qualitative research aims to gain an in-depth representative sample understanding of phenomena through informants who possess relevant knowledge, experience, or specific perspective. 3. The selection of informant is qualitative research is not based on the principle of statistical representativeness, but rather on the principles of appropriateness and information-rich cases. Next, analysis unit as a foundation for determining informants. Before determining who will be informants, qualitative research must first establish the research unit of analysis. According to Patton 2002, the unit of analysis is the location or focus where the research is conducted and data is collected. This unit of analysis consisted to 6 types. First, people focus such as individuals, small groups, or families. Second, structure focus such as programs, organizations, or work units. Based on perspective or point of view, namely people who tell stories about certain experience or cultures. 4. Geography focus such as administrative regions or physical location. 5. Activity focus such as events, incidents, or process. 6. Based on time, such as a certain period that is relevant to the phenomenon. Determining the unit of analysis at the beginning of the research is crucial because it forms the basis for completing criteria for relevant informants, designing data collection strategies, and focus the analysis on aspects that are in line with the research objective. Next, types and roles of informants. In qualitative research, informants are categorized into 3 types based on their role and deep information. First, key informants possess comprehensive conceptual knowledge or the research issue. Second, primary informants hold the technical and detailed knowledge, acting as the main actor in the phenomenon. Third, supporting informants provide additional data to complement analysis and enable triangulations. Next, according to Marta and Krasno, key informants must meet 4 criteria. First, active participant in the studied group or culture. Second, current involvement to ensure relevance Third, sufficient availability. And the last one, ability to express experience in natural, unpolished language. The recommended data collection sequence is start with key informants for conceptual overview, proceed to primary informants to technical depth, and conclude with supporting information for validation and deferred perspective. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. I will explain the next material is determining the number of information, the principle of education in sustainable. Qualitative research does not recognize a minimum sample size determined by statistical formulas. Generally, qualitative research uses a small number of informants, even in certain cases involving only one informant, if the phenomenon being studied is truly unique. According to Marta and Kresno 2016, there are at least two requirements that must be met determining the number of informants, education and appropriateness. The requirement of education is met when the information obtained from the informants has reached data saturation, namely the point at which no new findings, new gaps, or new insights emerge from additional interviews or observation. The requirement of suitability means that the selected informants must be truly relevant to the unit of analysis and the focus of the research. Based on this principle, researchers have the flexibility to make three decisions during the research. First, increasing the number of informants if information is deemed insufficient, or if there are variables that remain unanswered. Second, reducing the number of informants if data saturation is reached and the research questions have been answered. And third, replacing informants if the person is uncooperative, dishonest, or unable to articulate their experience clearly. Informant selection technique purposeful sampling. The selection informants in qualitative research is entirely determined by the researchers based on their research strategy and objective, which is why Peterson 2002 calls it purposeful sampling, which involves selecting information-rich cases. According to Peterson 2002, there are 16 types of informant selection techniques using purposeful sampling, but the four most relevant for public administrations research are as follows. 1. Purposive sampling, which is selection based on specific criteria relevant to the research question, is suitable for use when researchers already know the characteristic of the informants needed. And 1. Snowball sampling, or the snowball technique, which involves asking initial informants the recommended other potential informants, is very useful for reaching populations that are difficult to access or hidden. 2. Maximum variation sampling, namely selection informants with very different characteristics to understand general patterns amidst a diversity of perspectives. And 3. Critical case sampling, namely selecting critical case where if phenomenon occurs here, it is likely to also occur in other cases, suitable for theory testing or policy evolution. That's all my material. I will return it to the moderator.
Okay, thanks the moderator. Next I will present the material about informant recruitment stage and ethical consideration. Recruitment of informant in qualitative research is a rational process that requires a systematic and ethical approach. The first stage is to analyze the role of informants, namely determining the position of potential informants based on the theoretical framework and research problems indicator. The second stage is to identify the availability of informants in the file, which can be done through a gatekeeper approach, community leaders, or secondary data researchers. The third stage is deciding whether to accept or reject the informant, but the final decision must remain under the researcher's methodological control to avoid information bias from external parties. The fourth stage is negotiation, access and implementing informed consent, namely building rapport, explaining the research objectives, ensuring data confidentiality, and obtaining voluntary consent from informants. The main ethical principles that must be adhered to include complete and transparent informed consent, confidentiality of informant identity and data the informant right now to withdraw at any time without consequences, and the principle of non-maleficency, namely ensuring that research doesn't harm informants physically, psychologically, socially, or professionally. Next, practical challenge and strategies to overcome them in informant selection. Selecting informant is qualitative research is inherently fraught with various practical challenges that researchers must anticipate from the planning stage. The first challenge is identifying clear and measurable informant criteria that not all given that not all individuals involved in the research phenomenon have sufficient knowledge or experience to be source of quality data. Himam et al. 2026. The second challenge relates to accessibility, particularly when research involves hard-to-reach, sensitive, or hidden populations such as marginalized groups or actors in controversial policies. The third challenge is building trust and rapport with potential informants so that they are willing to participate openly and honestly, which requires interpersonal skills and ethical sensitivity from researchers Haryana 26. To overcome this challenge, researchers are advised to develop an operational metric of inclusion and exclusion criteria, utilize a gatekeeper approach wisely without losing methodological independency, and apply the principle of informed consent consistently to ensure voluntary and ethical participation. The last material is data validity and the role of informant triangulation. The credibility of qualitative research is not measured by the number of informants, but rather by the quality of the information obtained and the research's ability to reach data saturation. The point at which the new findings emerge from the data collection process. Marta and Kresno, 26. One of the main strategies for increasing data validity is through source triangulation, which involves collecting information from various types of informants to validate and enrich research finding. Haryana 26. Informant triangulation allows researchers to test the consistency of information, identify different perspectives, and avoid bias from a single source. In addition to source triangulation, researchers can also apply method triangulation and time triangulation to strengthen the reliability of findings. Thus, selecting the right informant not only impacts the depth of the data, but also becomes the main foundation in building trustworthiness of qualitative research that can be scientifically accounted for. Patton et al. Okay, I return it to the moderator. Thank you.
And next is conclusions. Informant selection is the foundation of the credibility of qualitative research, unlike quantitative research, which prioritizes statistical representation. Finally, as the moderator and on behalf of my group members, I apologize for any shortcomings in our delivery. Thank you for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.